Хорошие оценки надо получить. Ну да. Ну вот это он имел в виду. Да. Ну вот это он имел в виду. Да. Ну это в себе он так думает. Но он о себе так думает. Он типа не понимает. Ну да, вот это и есть на самом деле. Да. Ну вот надо. Наоборот, да. Думаю, что-то меня грабить здесь будет. В смысле, что завязать, думаешь, да, ну это он имеет в виду. Да, на себя так думал, да. Да. Ну, на себя так думает, потому что... Ну, женить не надо. Вот это. Он живет один. Ну это он на тебе так, ну себе так, вот это что-то, ну он про себя так думал, что, да, думал, ну это как бы тебе он так думал, да. И что ты хочешь сказать-то, наоборот, да, ну да, ну нет, значит, да, ну вот это есть, ну наоборот, ну вот наоборот, да, вот это есть. Ну вот это было. И что будет? И дальше. Ну, что ты думал, что сделать? Да, 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 ну нет, ну это не важно, если, ну ладно, ну хорошо, тоже, ну ладно. Да, да, он то все. Ну, это тоже не видно. Ну, 4 тысячи, что ли. Пускулянт просто. Не, просто и. Смотри, тогда всякие. Ну да. Тоже так, кстати. 4. Три. Ну да. Ну вот надо. Так вот это и есть на самом деле. Ну, чем еще надо? Вот это и есть на самом деле. Ну да. Ну, да. И что дальше? Что из того? Что звук вроде наилучшее из важных. Да, вот это он имел в виду. Да. Если я сейчас сделаю другой энкодер, ну ладно, посмотрим. Два изменения. Так. Ну, вроде как все. Изменения этих штучек. Вот это есть. Да. Ладно, понял. Пять же там точно будет 5.
Hi, it's Handy Andy Tech Tips here, and today I'm going to tell you why H.265 HEVC, the latest video compression standard, is so awesome. Now, you know, video encoding has evolved a lot through the years, from the very early MPEG-2, which was used on DVDs way back in 1996, to the most recent H.264. But every new standard seems to promise the same thing. Identical quality for DVDs way back in 1996 to the most recent H.264. But every new standard seems to promise the same thing. Identical quality to the previous one, but at half the bitrate. So how does H.265 achieve this? Well, there's two main methods used in video compression. One is called interframe, which means that the previous and future frames are compared to the current one, and we only encode what's changed. To do this, we start on an iframe, which is stored as a full image, much like a JPEG. Then we divide it into small 16 by 16 pixel areas, which in the previous standard were called macro blocks. Now we're going to advance to the next frame and compare its macro blocks with that of the iframe. If there are several blocks which are roughly the same, then we give the new frame the status of a P frame, that is, a predicted frame. This means that what we can easily do is intercode block A. So because it's identical, we can just bring the pixel values directly across. And then we can intracode block B. In other words, give it entirely unique pixel values that are only for this frame. Now here is the H.265 difference. Macro blocks have now been renamed to coding tree units, and they can range from the original 16 by 16 size way up to 64 by 64. Now why is this such a big improvement? Well, you've got to remember that when H.264 was first standardized back in 2003, 1080p video was the height of technology. Now, of course, we've got 4K, and more efficient encoding is needed. And this is exactly what larger macro blocks give you. Now, the second big improvement has to do with intra-frame compression. In other words, comparing areas within the same frame and looking for redundancy. And the improvement is areas within the same frame, intra-frame compression. In other words, comparing areas within the same frame and looking for redundancy. And the improvement is, wait for it, the increase in prediction directions. What? Well, remember these things? Coding tree units, also called macro blocks, redundancy. And the improvement is, wait for it, the increase in prediction directions. What? Well, remember these things? Coding tree units, also called prediction directions. What? Well, remember these things? Coding tree units, also called macro blocks, they can actually be split further into things called coding units, which can go down to 8 by 8 pixels, and then into things called, also called macro blocks. They can actually be split further into things called coding units, which can go down to 8 by 8 pixels. And these, get this, they can be partitioned even further, cut up different ways, into prediction units. Why would we bother doing this? So we can mathematically generate pixel values in a block instead of storing them, and therefore we can massively reduce the size of each frame. Here's how it works. I've got my tiny little prediction unit here, a little 4x4, and it's surrounded by two groups of pixels, which I'll call block A and block B. Now I can actually use various intra-prediction modes on this structure. I can use, for example, DC, which will basically fill this with the average of the surrounding pixels. This would be good on an outdoor scene with a blue sky, where there's no real pattern to it. It's more of just a single colour. Alternatively, I can use an angular function. So say, for example, if I have a line coming down here and I want to continue it through the block. Using my angular function, I simply point to the direction where the line is coming from, and it will extrapolate or continue that trend. Now here again, there is a difference with H.265, and it's a good one. Back in the old days, I only had 9 prediction modes, but now I have access to, wait for it, 35 different modes. Now the advantages to this are many, including far greater accuracy when larger block sizes are used, say for example in 4K video, and generally much better quality compression. So, they are the main reasons why H.265 is better. Bit exhausting, hey? But they're all theoretical, and what you might want to know is when can you use it? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is not as often as you'd like. I mean, you can't upload videos encoded with it to YouTube, and most web browsers don't support playing H.265 natively. But it's been adopted as a default codec on 4K Blu-ray, and of course you can play it back on your PC, but you might need to use software decoding. Anyway, I'm Handy Andy, and thank you very much for watching my video on H.265. Please subscribe to my channel for more tech videos.
In this video, we'll explore H.264 encoding and decoding, all made possible by a single Matrox Mira IPX 4K capture and IP encode-decode card. Because H.264 both encodes and decodes content, it is referred to as a codec, an algorithm which packages and unpackages content for further streaming or recording. Encoding is another term for compression, which reduces the size of a file, making it easier to transmit over a distance and or to be disseminated to multiple endpoints or nodes as part of a network. Decoding, on the other hand, reverses this process and decompresses the content. H.264 is just one of many codecs designed to package together content for the purpose of streaming or recording. Also known as MPEG-4 AVC, it is the most universally deployed codec in use today. As a result of this, H.264 is the optimal codec choice right now. Different levels of H.264 is deeply deployed or record many codecs designed to package together content for the purpose of streaming or recording. Also known as MPEG-4 AVC, it is the most universally deployed codec in use today. As a result of this, H.264 is the optimal codec choice right now. Different levels of H.264 encoding and decoding are available, with the highest level being 5.2. H.264 predicts the makeup of frames comprising the content, assessing information or areas that require more or less compression. For example, during a video of a press conference, a relatively stationary subject stands between a podium and a backdrop, both of which are even more static. H.264 deduces which areas will not change from frame to frame, and acts to compress accordingly. It does this more efficiently than other codecs would in its place. H.264 effectively balances a tightrope between visual quality and file size for cost-effective bitrate management. As a result, bandwidth consumption is reduced when distributing and recording content, and the amount of space when storing it. As a result, it all costs less. Bitrate is defined as the amount of data encoded per second. The higher the bitrate, the higher the quality of the video. Because more data is transmitted at a higher bitrate, it also means a higher cost as well. For example, take two videos that are showing exactly the same content. One has a resolution of 1080p, and the other is a larger 4K video. Both can be streamed at the same bitrate. However, the 4K content will require more compression to accomplish this and look worse as a result. In order to maintain the same quality for the 4K video, the bitrate will have to increase. Similarly, image quality shares an inverse relationship with frame rate. The higher the frame rate, the more data there is to encode. With a 60 Hz video possessing twice the number of frames per second as a 30 Hz clip. When there are more frames, there is more data to encode. For example, in high-frequency content like live sports, higher frame rates are required for the video to be watchable, and in turn, higher bit rates are needed to transmit this video. Meanwhile, bitrate control can be described as either constant or variable. Bitrates can either maintain a constant flow of data for consistent quality, or have the codec determine how much compression is needed for each frame for greater efficiency. Remember the example of the press conference? Imagine that as one scene in a longer video, and one which could employ a fair amount of compression. In contrast, a car chase scene with multiple camera angles and constantly changing motion would involve far more unique frames and therefore be less able to employ compression. The highly efficient H.264 codec is, in part, what separates Matrox Mira IPX cards from the competition. Able to record and stream high-quality H.264 encoded video to any device with H.264 decoding capabilities over IP at low bit rates, Mira IPX creates network-enabled video walls with a single add-in card. To learn more about Mira IPX's features and how they relate to H.264, view the second part of this video or visit matrox.com/graphics/Mira IPX.
Наоборот, значит, что тут и вот это есть на самом деле.
Преимущество у того, кто лучше понимает клиента.
Думаешь, куда?
В этом вам поможет Google реклама. Это широкие возможности таргетинга. И более 80...
наоборот, только просто потому что... Да, наоборот, наоборот, все, да,
Since the start of digital video in 1988, new video formats are developed every year in an attempt to provide improvements in quality, file size, and video playback. The popularity of video continues to grow rapidly, with 78% of people watching at least one digital video on one of their devices every single day. However, video formats and how they work is still a subject of much confusion for most people. Whether you need to convert your video file to play in a specific browser or device, or you're an editor looking to build your knowledge on video formats in general, we'll teach you the basics you need to understand video files and how to use them to your advantage. In this video, you'll learn about the most popular formats, codecs, and containers for the web today, which parts they consist of, and what format will be best for your situation. First, we need to understand what a video format is. Usually, people refer to the file's extension as the video file's format, but this isn't entirely correct. Some formats consist as a combination of files, folders, and even playlists, all of which are needed to play the video properly. To better understand video formats, let's take a look at one specific video file and understand how all of its parts work together to display the videos you see on your screen. The file extension is actually a representation of what's called the container. A container for a video file is the part that contains all of the other files needed to play back a specific video. These files include the video stream, the audio stream, and the metadata. This works with the video stream telling the player what needs to appear on the screen, while the audio stream tells the player which sound needs to be played alongside the video. The metadata, which means data about data, includes all of the other information about the video, including things like bitrate, type, resolution, subtitles, device, and time of creation, and more. One of the most important pieces of metadata, which you may have run into if you've worked with video files, is the codec. The word codec is a combination of the words coder and decoder. As the title suggests, it creates an encoded video or audio stream, making it smaller and easy to manage. The player or target software then decodes it based on the rules set by that codec, and plays back the video with similar quality to the original. Just like containers, there are hundreds of different codecs used on various audio and video.
Наоборот, опять там псевдоатака.
Companies like Encode allow you to convert your videos to all the latest codecs. Let's cover the most important codecs for you to use, as well as their advantages and disadvantages. Let's start with the video codecs. A good place to begin is H.264, or AVC as it's commonly referred to. H.264 is by far the most commonly used video codec, mostly because it provides a significantly better bitrate over its predecessors for the same file size. For this reason, it is very widely supported, and you can be confident you will rarely run into any support issues using the H.264. Its successor, H.265, provides a significant is by far the most commonly used video codec, mostly because it provides a significantly better bitrate over its predecessors for the same file size. For this reason, it is very widely supported, and you can be with similar quality to the original. Just like containers, there are hundreds of important pieces of metadata which you may have run into if you've worked with video file screen, while the audio stream tells the player which sound needs to be played alongside the video. The metadata, which means data about data, includes all of the other information about the video, including things like bitrate, type, resolution, subtitles, device, and time of creation, and more. One of the most important pieces of metadata, which you may have run into if you've worked with video files, is the codec. The word codec is a combination of the words coder and decoder. As the title suggests, it creates an encoded video or audio stream, making it smaller and easy to manage. The player or target software then decodes it based on the rules set by that codec, and plays back the video with similar quality to the original. Just like containers, there are hundreds of different codecs used on various audio and video files. Companies like Encode allow you to convert your videos to all the latest codecs. Let's cover the most important codecs for you to use, as well as their advantages and disadvantages. Let's start with the video codecs. A good place to begin is H.264, or AVC as it's commonly referred to. H.264 is by far the most commonly used video codec, mostly because it provides a significantly better bitrate over its predecessors for the same file size. For this reason, it is very widely supported, and you can be confident you will rarely run into any support issues using the H.264. Its successor, H.265, is referred to as HEVC, which stands for High Efficiency Video Coding. This codec delivers on its name, with a compression rate that is almost double that of H.264. This means that a file encoded with HEVC is going to be at least 50% smaller than a file encoded in AVC. This is extremely beneficial for resolutions above 2K, as well as video streaming. The flip side of HEVC is that it's much more complicated to encode, requiring triple the resources for the video to be prepared for playback. And just like H.264, H.265 is prepared for playback, and to encode, requiring triple the resources for the video to be prepared for playback. And just like H.264, H.265 is a proprietary codec and has a royalty associated with its usage. Although adoption of HEVC is growing, after 3 years, it's still not nearly as popular as its predecessor. Apple has recently announced that they will support HEVC video. However, there are some new codecs on the rise which give doubts as to whether it will become dominant. For example, VP9 was developed by Google to be a royalty-free and open-source codec. Originally, it was used for YouTube because it also reduced bitrate 50% more than its predecessor, VP8. Just like H.265, it's good for high resolutions and live streaming, but it's harder to decode and less supported than H.264. However, the technology behind VP9 generally makes streams more consistent and reliable, while H.265 usually provides a better overall image quality. It's also important to note that VP9 commonly uses the WebM or IVF containers, which we don't have time to cover as part of this video. A new royalty-free codec called AV1 is currently in development. Although it is still officially unreleased, people who have started to use it say it shows a lot of promise. If you want to learn more, check out the link in our description. We just covered the main video codecs you need to think about, but audio codecs are a different story, and also very important to your video. Let's take a look at some of the most popular codecs for audio, to help you better understand which one best fits your needs. MP3 is one of the most famous audio codecs out there. Developed by the Moving Pictures Experts Group in 1993, this lossy audio codec takes advantage of the limitations of human hearing, often referred to as auditory masking. An example of this is that MP3 is often reduced to 128 kilobytes per second, which sounds almost like the original CD, but is only 9% of the file size. 24 years later, MP3 continues to be a popular format for sharing and playing back audio content, but it has limited functionality for video, and there are a few other audio codecs that have become increasingly popular over the years. For example, AAC, which stands for Advanced Audio Coding, is a proprietary audio codec developed shortly after MP3. The main benefits of AAC are that it's widely supported and that you get better sound for the same bitrate. This has made AAC the most popular codec to use for videos today. There are little support issues, and most of the time this is the best codec to use for your video. However, AAC does have a limit on audio channels, which means we will need another codec to handle more robust video experiences. If you need surround sound or backwards compatibility with more robust AAC ported, made AAC the most popular codec to use for videos today. There are little support issues, and most of the time this is the best codec to use for your video. However, AAC does have a limit on audio channels, which means we will need